we are here now. Thank you, Dr. Thomas Herbst. Did I say that right? Herbst?
You said it right.
Your last name is kind of fun to pronounce.
A lot of variations.
Yeah. You are a board-certified psychiatrist, an artist, clay maker, pottery designer, and overall outstanding cool fellow. And we are here in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where your practice is. How long have you been here for?
I've been practicing since 96.
Okay, that's a long time.
It's over 25 years.
You haven't gotten sick of it yet?
It's, well, one might think I've been doing that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
There is always something new around the corner. Always stuff to learn.
Mm-hmm. That's cool that you have an open mind because, one might think that after doing it for so long, you might think that you know everything.
Well, a tendency is the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah, I was having a conversation about that with somebody recently, and it's like one of the cornerstones of true wisdom is realizing that there's so much that you don't know and so much that you have to learn.
Yes, questions beget more questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that really opens the doors to new knowledge. But so did you always know that you wanted to be on this journey to heal other people, since you were younger?
I knew at least since high school that I wanted to be in psychiatry.
Mm-hmm.
And I was interested in the brain, about relationships, how people saw the world,
Yeah.
how they responded to the world.
Perception.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a big one. How do you feel about perception? I mean, we perceive things, and that creates our experience of life emotionally, often based off of the nature of how we perceive reality to be. And perception is subjective. It's not, everybody has a unique perception. Do you deal with perception at all as a psychiatrist?
So in psychiatry, one major part is being aware of the mechanics of the brain. Mm-hmm. I usually say we live in this, we float in a little dark chamber inside our heads. Mm-hmm. And then our senses bring in information. And so we gain this information from the outside world. Sometimes it's inside our heads from like memories or fantasies about anticipating the future.
Yeah.
A lot of times our brain may not know the difference time-wise. Mm-hmm. And so we have to have that sense of how well is our ability to reality test. But how do we perceive, how do we interpret those perceptions, and then how do we react, and the stories that we tell ourselves.
Yeah, that's a big one too.
And part of it is the story that we tell ourselves, and then the common stories that we hold such that we share a reality. Mm-hmm. And those stories can change.
Yeah, there's this sort of organized story that we all agree on living in this society, that we sort of base our laws, our rules, our expectations of each other on.
And a lot of it is unspoken.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you do a lot of studies on the brain, sort of medical perspectives, and the medical, or sort of the matter perception of emotions from the neuroscience view. So how emotions correlate to physical reality, if that makes sense, in terms of like what's going on in the brain physically.
Okay. Usually, well, okay, there's a couple of things there. Usually what we talk about is let me have like an emotional awareness. Mm-hmm. I usually say that since we ambulate or walk, therefore we have a brain, and our brain is involved with where do we walk to? We walk towards something or away from something. And all of our decisions are going to be emotionally based, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. And the emotions have a bearing as to what choices we make. And there's going to be 5 basic emotions. And generally you have to be able to tolerate sitting with those emotions in order to be able to hear those emotions and hear the message of those emotions.
So something that, I experienced personally, and I know it's a big factor of being alive, of it, existing in this human body, is the experience that we have with our own emotions, and how you describe tolerating our emotions, how you said that just now. That's a practice, learning how to tolerate our emotions and being present with them, and not just tolerating them, but also being able to be non-judgmental and non-critical of our own emotions and what we observe internally. Is that a practice that you help cultivate in the people that you work with, that's non-critical perspective of oneself?
Well, yeah, generally, let's say in the therapy session, we hope that we ourselves as therapists are non-judgmental, and we have a holding space, and hopefully that role models to the individual is that they can move to being less judgmental about themselves.
Yeah.
People are usually more judgmental of others or not at peace with themselves. If they have that inner peace and radical acceptance of themselves, then they could be more accepting of others.
Do you think that's why people are judgmental towards other people? Because the first thing is they're judgmental towards themselves. Do you think that's where it starts?
They're connected.
Yeah.
Yeah, people are less judgmental about themselves. They're more open, more accepting of others. So yeah, people tend to project onto others.
Yeah. So if you are extremely judgmental towards yourself, then there's a chance that you're more judgmental towards other people.
You got it. Yeah.
So in a way, if you want to have better relationships with other people, then you should start having a better relationship with yourself, right?
Yep.
And is that something that you work with and you help people learn as a psychiatrist?
Yeah, I try to help them understand what it means to be human. And part of that is we have our emotions.
Yeah.
They are neutral. And what we do with them is a whole other matter. But just having them is not an issue. Being angry, everybody has problems. Everybody's going to get angry because anger is that barometer that we have that is like the problem detector. You feel angry, I got a problem. What's the problem? Can I live with it? How can I solve it? What we do with that anger, if it controls us, then that can interfere with our relationships.
Yeah. So it's one thing for an emotion to exist within us, but then it's another thing to actually act out on that emotion.
You got it. Difference between feelings and actions.
Sometimes I feel nervous that I have certain feelings inside of me. Like, I feel like I'm so happy that nobody can see what's going on in my mind right now, because and I'm happy that I can just work on these emotions in private. You know what I mean? In the privacy of my own mind.
Okay.
And, but yeah, it's like a challenge to just sometimes allow these emotions to exist, in our own minds.
People can be so disgusted with having emotions.
Yeah, with themselves.
That they disown them.
I feel that way about myself sometimes.
Yeah, and they're just
like,
emotions.
Who am I?
And they're just fantasies.
Yeah.
One of the book titles that I like from a forensic psychiatry book is Bad Men Do What Good Men Dream. And
Bad men do what good men dream.
Yeah.
So like in the good man's mind, it's just a dream. It's just a fantasy, right? It's a
They're
thought.
just fantasies.
But
Okay.
but you don't act on it.
But we don't act. Yeah. Our frontal cortex keeps us social.
Yeah.
It inhibits us. If it was just our emotional limbic system, we'll probably be out at each other's
Yeah.
throats all the time.
So
There would be chaos.
is it okay to have those fantasies?
It's all right. Yeah. They're just fantasies. And part of the issue is we have all these big, strong, we have these big feelings.
Yeah.
And we never get comfortable with the big feelings. We don't know how to handle those big feelings. We don't get those skills as to how to handle them.
Yeah.
And then if they take over, then problems can happen.
So if they take over, meaning you act on them without being in control.
We get dysregulated.
What does that mean?
The emotions hijack our system, and then we can act impulsively. And in extreme cases, people can do bad things that are uncharacteristic. Crimes of passion.
Yeah.
People will get worked up, and unfortunately they may harm or even take a life when they're in the throes of having big emotions. And then they can end up, incarcerated as a result.
So it feels really good to know that having intense feelings, even though you may be embarrassed of them, like myself, is okay to have, and that's part of the human experience.
Yeah, I another phrase I tend to use is life is a series of awkward events.
Yeah.
Life is an experimentation. We see what works, what doesn't work. As long as we don't make a fatal mistake, we're okay.
Yeah.
We make errors, we learn from the errors, we gain wisdom from life experience.
So do you have a practice that you recommend to people to be present with those, whatever is arising in the mind, and not act on it, but still be present with it?
One of the techniques might be more of like a mindful type of technique, where if you feel like you want to do something, can you sit with that emotion for about 15 minutes? That something basic, like if somebody impulsively eats and they're bored, they go to the refrigerator. It gets into the phrase of, instead of what are you eating, what's eating you?
Yeah.
Before you go, can you just sit for 15 minutes and be aware of that sensation, be aware of what's going on or what's not going on, before you act?
That's a great strategy, because the concept behind that is that after 15 minutes, the emotion might shift into something else.
Yeah, the impulse may fade away. So, but just to kind of learn about yourself.
Yeah.
What's driving this behavior?
And do you think that when you cultivate that awareness of yourself, then it also helps you manage those emotions? That
At least one hopes that if one gains insight about themselves, one might be able to make better choices. But part of that insight gets into, what am I perceiving? How am I interpreting it? How do I tend to respond?
Right.
And what's the consequence of that response? And when I choose this, I'm also choosing the outcome. And do I really want that outcome? If I want a different outcome, why am I doing the same thing? Why am I viewing it the same way?
Yeah.
Can I be flexible?
Right.
So like a lot of times we talk about like mental health.
Yeah.
Mental health is having flexibility, that fitness to the environment that's ever changing. And so one has to be aware of themselves, aware of the environment, and then they can try to foster that flexibility to maintain that fit to the environment. What isn't changing is not growing. If you aren't growing, you're dying. Stagnation is death. So you have to continue to grow, continue to evolve as the environment around you
That's really
evolves.
cool. It's like you like plants, and that sounds like something that a tree would say, or a forest.
Well, there's that tree and the reed.
Yeah.
The tree can say, "Oh, look how strong I am," to the little reed.
Yeah.
And then a big wind comes down.
Yeah.
And then the reed goes, "Ah."
And then there's also the roots, of course, too, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so, do you think that flexibility includes flexibility towards staying calm regardless of what is going on emotionally, internally? We have maybe this emotion comes up and then that emotion comes up, and it's a whole spectrum, but staying calm amongst
To be
all
able
of that.
to make better. Okay, so let's say our brain is ruled by fear.
Yeah.
We have neurotic brains. That's what keeps going. Better to be overestimate danger and be safe than to underestimate danger and have a life that's cut short. But so there's making the unfamiliar familiar because of stranger danger. Okay, so so when there's novelty, we get on edge. We like to be able to have predictions. If I can understand the lay of the land and I understand where I'm at, where I'm going, and I can understand the path, if I know the buildings and the roadways.
Right, because that's like a biological strategy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. If I'm
Mapping our world.
if I'm familiar with it, if I can liken it to something else,
Yeah. then
then I can chill, and then I can think more clearly as to what I need to do to navigate it. If I'm not afraid of my emotions, if my emotions are my friends, if they're my consults, I can listen to them, not be afraid of them. I can listen to them, see what they're saying to me, and then be informed. If they hijack me, then
Yeah.
things
Okay,
go
so
crazy.
here's a big one. So it's one thing to experience intense emotions in the privacy of your own home. You're in the bathtub, there's some Epsom salts in the bath,
Okay.
got some music going on, and maybe you have a panic attack for whatever reason.
Okay.
That's one thing, right?
Yes.
But it's another thing to experience them on stage or in a social situation where people are looking at you, and not only are you experiencing the emotions, but you're also experiencing, oh, these people are watching me get stressed out and watching me embarrass myself. And so there's this added factor of what you think other people will think about you for experiencing yourself, basically.
Okay.
And for me personally, that makes it more challenging to be present with my anxiety, because I'm worried about, what other people are going to think when they see me being anxious. And so, yeah, like there's this added level of stress to that.
Well, dive into the stress.
What?
Dive into the stress. It's like meditation.
Yeah.
When I've done meditation, it's that sense of, I remember when I did like an insight meditation week, and it would be like you get into the lotus position or whatever position, and you just hold it for an hour. And if you're in pain, you just go into the pain. And so with the anxiety, you go into the anxiety and you explore it and you progress it. Part of that anxiety is going to be a remnant of, let's say, when our brain evolved. When our brain evolved, it just kept adding rooms that really needed to go in and renovate, which it never did. So we have a whole bunch of old technology in our brains. And part of that's going to be that tribal mentality. My life depends upon the tribe. If I'm too pro-self, and I in a way antisocial. The tribe may judge me and cast me out, and then I'll be dead within 24 hours.
And then we'll be out
so,
in the wilderness.
And so we carry
with the
that
bears.
we carry that with us to the present moment. We keep thinking that I'm going to get judged harshly, and then the tribe is going to eject me. But
And that's ingrained in our mind.
that's in our neurology.
Yeah.
However, how many tribes do we have? I mean, if I get fired from my job,
At this point, we
there's
have
other tribes out there.
right.
There's not
There's
the
thousands
danger.
of tribes to
There's
pick
not
from.
the danger that there used to be.
But we still feel, at some fundamental level that there is.
Yeah, because it's in our neurology, and so we react to it. But there's also the sense of increasing the perspective. If I'm up on stage anxious, well, what is the audience going to be
There's a
thinking?
lot of tribes out there.
Yeah, yeah.
Waiting to judge me, waiting to cast me out.
But also those members are also thinking the same. They're going to be thinking, oh my gosh, what bravery you have for being up on stage. Glad I'm not up there. I can never do it.
Yeah.
And they generally don't come with rotten tomatoes anymore.
Yeah. Not like the good old days.
Yeah. So.
So there's a lot of things that I actually wanted to ask you about. Let's talk about pottery, clay a little bit.
Okay.
And how long have you been making pots for?
Really got started in 2005.
So that's like 20 years.
20 years now.
20 years of spinning the wheel.
Yep.
And boy, does it spin.
Different speeds.
What is the nature of being grounded when you're working with an earth material, an earth like element, like clay? Do you notice anything, any correlation?
We actually in ceramics had a few different of the elements. Air, fire.
I guess there's always air. But the main one is earth.
The main is
right?
earth.
Because
so,
specifically when you're doing ceramics.
So one has to, when one is using the wheel, one has to be in tune with their body. Mm-hmm. They have to know how their hands are, the position of their fingers, and that tactile sense with the clay. And so some people will close their eyes to get more in that sensory. Mm-hmm.
So you are leaving your mind and entering your physical body in this kind of realm of touch.
Touch and attention and focus. Mm-hmm. If you get lost in your thoughts, then you're gonna lose your focus over here.
Right.
And
then it'll just
collapses.
It'll
collapses.
It'll
it's
implode.
Yeah.
What is a pottist? A pottist's worst nightmare?
I'm not too sure what the worst nightmare would be. The whole kiln burning down, losing the studio. But this is just in the name of the game. We learn kind of like a Tibetan sand painting. Everything is temporary. Okay. We hope that our vessels are not so temporary. We hope they last a bit longer to get out there into the world.
Yeah.
But everything is temporary. Eventually the pot's going to break.
Just like life, right?
Life ends. Everything's temporary. The emotional storms are temporary. Mm-hmm. The pots are temporary.
The tribes.
Yeah. So we just learn not to get too caught up in the pot.
Okay.
I'm at a studio. There's other people handle my pottery pieces
Do they ever
all
drop
the time. And every now and then I get a text going, Tom, I'm sorry, broke one of your pieces.
Tom, buddy,
I hope you weren't too attached. It's like, oh well.
Do you ever want to say, like, you know what? I actually was really attached to that piece. Screw you, man.
You learn not to. And if you're attached, you put a little sign that says, nobody handled this but
attached.
Me. When you're going to be loading the kiln, I will come in and load this.
Yeah. I will make sure.
Yeah. But there's also the realization, again, if it doesn't break now, at some point it's going to break.
But then you can you reuse that clay?
If it has yet to be fired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
But after it's fired, can you crush it down and like grind it into clay dust and add some water?
I think some people will break it down and form grog.
Grog.
And or it adds texture and stability to the walls. Sometimes if you use like porcelain, it's like cream cheese, and there's not as much stability, so it gets a little bit more difficult to make bigger
So you
structures.
put the grog inside the clay?
And so if there's grog, sometimes we'll add a whole bunch of different stuff to clay.
Won't that hurt,
So,
like as you're kind of molding it and it's like spinning fast?
it's a little bit rougher, but sometimes people will add paper or rice or other grains into it.
The tears
it
of a
burns
potter?
out. Some of the organic stuff will burn out,
Yeah.
but it adds stability, and then that adds then more possibility.
So
Which I'm now all of a sudden reminded of when we think about like mental health, or at least how stable am I? When do I get sick? How long do I have to live? Is that sense of we think about like resilience. How much resilience do I have to kind of weather stress? And then do I have a social safety net? Safety in numbers, the tribe. If I don't have the resilience, can I with my people? Do they have my back? So I feel secure. And then that may offer me more resilience to be able to go out and do stuff.
go out and hunt for like
Having a
bears
hunting party rather than being hunted by yourself.
tigers.
If you're on stage, are you on stage by yourself or with a group of people? And you all can be open about, we're all anxious.
Yeah.
If you forget a line, is there somebody there to help you with that line? You're in it together.
I think that's the pressure about being on stage, is that you feel like you're all alone. And if you mess up, if you stutter or something, then there's no one there to help you and no one there to back you up. But then that's also part of the pressure that we put on ourselves. And boy, do we put a lot of pressure on ourselves.
There's expectations.
Yeah.
And the question is, why do we have those expectations?
Why do we have
do
those?
Do we fear judgment?
Why do we have them?
But also at the same time, if people were perfect, people always say,
that would be so
and so's perfect. I just want to slug them. If you're perfect, you're sort of not acceptable. If you aren't, then you're human like me, and I don't mind being around you because you're good, I'm good.
If we were perfect, I think that we would get tired of being perfect. And I think that the dissatisfaction with being perfect would slowly corrupt the perfection that we have established ourselves, and then we would become unperfect again.
Laws of entropy.
Yeah.
But there's also, if we're perfect, what's the point of being alive?
Right.
Yeah.
There is no point,
There's no more growth.
Yeah.
There's no more growth. I mean, we have perfection maybe to strive towards. But if we were there would be no more growth, and stagnation is death.
Do you think the point of life is to grow?
I see it as a school, so yes.
A school, and we're just a bunch of school children running around this playground of planet Earth.
Yeah. Playground.
That's beautiful.
Schoolhouse.
That's beautiful because it gives us the room to make mistakes.
Yeah. The room to, this gets into like creativity. Mm-hmm. And pottery, we say there's no cheating. but to be creative, you need to feel safe. You need to feel secure. You need to be allowed to go out onto the limb.
And you need to feel relaxed.
To be relaxed. You can't be judgmental. Mm-hmm. You have to say, okay, I'm going to take a chance. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I want to try something new. I need to break away from what is already known, get new frontier, new growth. Mm-hmm. That room for, we have to be able to adapt, and so I need to be able to hit new territory, new ideas. And how do I do that?
How do you do that?
You have to be able to take chances.
Yeah.
If you're afraid of what other people might think, if you're afraid of failure, you aren't going to take the risk.
Yeah. That's true. So there's an aspect of bravery involved also, because it's like this tribe mentality. You know, you can do the same thing over and over again because you know that that works. You know that other people are secure with that. You yourself are secure with that, and you're not going to be casted out for doing something that, you know, is relatively okay in your circle and in your position in the world. But then as soon as you start being brave and you start going out of the box, then it's like, okay, I'm taking a risk here. You know, I might do something that other people find threatening. And there's a chance that this might backfire on me and I'll be alone again out in the wilderness with the bears and tigers.
Yeah. What's courage?
Courage, courage is willing to be alone in the wilderness with the bears and tigers in the deep forest.
Yeah, so courage is like, despite my fears, okay? And really the problem with fear is if we start avoiding needlessly. But courage is having bravery in the face of fear. So where we, despite being afraid, we move forward and we take a chance.
Yeah. And do you think that that is something that is cultivated? Is that something that we are born with? We are born brave and strong, or is that something that we just find in the moment? You know, when we need to.
This is a bit more complicated.
I'm ready for it.
I remember 25 odd years or so ago, there was a guy who was doing a lot of research in genes, and one of the genes he was looking at was the harm avoidance gene.
That's a big one, right? Because that's kind of the point of
It
life.
keeps us
to avoid
alive
harm.
if we avoid harm,
or like one of life's missions.
But if we avoid harm all the time, then nobody's taking a risk, and then there's not that progress.
And then what happens if we don't take a risk? We're just
we
stuck.
die, we stagnate, we die. We cannot adapt. We become rigid and flexible,
Right.
and that's not good. And part of health is having that flexibility.
Yeah. So do you think it's because, you know, some people are more brave than others. Some people can tolerate taking more risks than other people.
So there's going to be a foundation also that may permit, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If we feel safe, if we feel secure, if we have our tribe, you know, there is that sense of, if we have friendships, we can say, yeah, our friend is a little bit nutty, but they're who they are, and I love them for that. I don't want them to be anybody else.
Yeah.
But that sense of we can be ourselves. You know, we could let our insides out, and that relationship is secure. And in healthy relationships, this is what we strive to. With whom do we feel safe? With whom do we feel secure? So that we can be ourselves and discover ourselves and share ourselves openly. Beautiful. You know, if we can't do that, if there's too much danger, it's not a healthy, health-promoting relationship.
So do you think, like, you know, let's say, for example, in a romantic relationship, do you think that one of the key things that you should be looking for or being aware of when in a relationship or when finding a partner is, can I just completely be myself without being judged?
Can I feel safe and secure? The person I'm with may have their opinion, but they not only tolerate and accept us, they want us to. We don't have to be the same. Okay. In our brain, I'm going to go back to the amygdala again. That's part of the brain, the novelty detector. It's what's like me. What is familiar? The most familiar thing is me. So what is like me? I'm going to accept that. Diversity allows differences of thought, different perspectives, and that allows growth. You know, the question is, can I tolerate it? It's like that birds of a feather flock together. Okay, we usually try, when we usually meet somebody, we usually think of, how are you like me? You know, once we have enough common ground, we can also go, how are you different? And if you're different in this way, how can you expand my world? and part
How
of that
can we
is
grow together?
yeah. So we need to have some common ground and a common language so that we can talk. And do I feel safe and secure? But how is your world different than mine so that you can expand?
Right, because
Expand my palette.
if we were, if you know, if the people were exactly the same, then that wouldn't be like, I don't know, maybe some people are not, that wouldn't be super fun.
We
But
would all be clones of each other.
yeah,
Where's the growth? Yeah.
right. And
Where's the adventure? Every place on earth would be the same.
yeah. So variety.
Yeah, it allows for variety.
Variety.
New worlds. New thoughts.
And speaking of new worlds, this is one of the questions that I wanted to ask you. What do you think about AI?
What about AI?
That's a huge question. So, back in the day when in the late 90s, early 2000s, people were starting to get onto the idea of like, hey, this internet thing is happening, it's cool, we don't know much about it, but it exists. And then over the next decade, it just became completely ingrained in everybody's life, whether they wanted to use it or not. And now it's just normal. It's just like waking up in the morning. You check your email. It's part of being a human being on this planet. And that's the thing. That's what's been happening with AI. A few years ago, it was just this concept that people were starting to get interested in, but we didn't really know much about it, and not that many people were using it. Now, it's in everything. Every website has an AI that's helping you do this, do that. Everybody's parents are using ChatGPT to search up, recipes for banana bread. And it's going to become something that is like the internet, where it's just naturally completely ingrained in everybody's lives on a daily basis. And so, do you feel like that is threatening to human society, or it's just going to be a part of, everyday life, and it's going to be fine and normal, just like we're using, like the internet today?
Technologies develop. Paper was everywhere. Now digital technology is taking over, so paper's becoming less. And part of that digital technology is going to be more interfacing with integrated AI. So AI may be in a lot of things that we may not necessarily be aware of. It's going to be more seamless. It's just a tool. The question is, how is it going to be used? Is it going to be used as a benefit or to a detriment? And so then the question is it just AI itself, or who's going to use it, and how are they going to use it, and what purpose are they going to use it for?
So it kind of exemplifies the nature of our own minds in a way, right? Because the internet is just a tool. It's just a platform. But what is within the internet is a product of our own minds and what we've decided to put within the internet. So,
with AI, because in the AI is like, what information do we feed into the AI?
yeah.
And what are we expecting from AI? Are we making AI into like a God that is much better than us? Can AI surpass us? At least with computers, computer power can do a whole mess of things a whole lot more quickly than what we can.
Oh, yeah.
But can AI replace humanity? Will AI actually have, devoid of humanity, can AI on its own have any sense of creativity? Does AI worry about, social judgment?
Does it worry about getting up and getting tomatoes? And can it stop itself from getting turned off?
Yeah.
It has.
And AI only knows what is given to it, what feeds it, and what informs it, what is it based upon. So,
Right.
what are the limitations of AI? Are we expecting more from it than what it's capable of? Some people will also think about,
And can it learn on its own?
And can it learn on its own? Can we underestimate?
Yeah.
There was an article, or at least a headline. I didn't get to read the article, so I don't know how much support it had. But it was like, AI is just like people. You're as it's learning math, its ability to do it is going downhill. So
it's going downhill.
It was going down. I think it was like detecting errors and problems or something. It was the score was pretty high, and as it's evolving, the ability to do that detection is sort of going down. It's like dumbing down.
Yeah. Because that is such a classic dystopian like universe of AI, that underestimating AI and it just taking over human civilization, after we've treated it, badly, and learning about us and being like, you know what, I'm sick of this. I'm stronger than you guys. I'm smarter than you guys. I'm going to use you as an energy source and create my own AI universe.
Can AI adapt?
Right. And because once it starts adapting...
Can it adapt?
Can it adapt?
Yeah, is my question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because if it is... Because I remember, I think it was like a Star Trek episode in which they came to a planetary system that sort of the culture stagnated, and what ran it was an AI computer, and the computer can't progress, and so the people were all reliant on it, and I think that the society, the culture, just sort of stagnated.
Yeah.
And if human awareness and knowledge is what feeds AI, AI can only develop as far as humanity has developed. And if AI takes over and humanity fails to develop, then what are they feeding the AI? Can AI come out with novel hypotheses, novel ways of looking at something, different perspectives? Or are they wedded to what already humans know that has been fed into the system?
Right.
I don't know enough about AI.
Yeah, me neither.
So,
but it's in all of our lives, so it's important to talk about. Social media. When did you notice that social media was taking over everything?
So I don't know the date you sort of wake up and go, whoa.
Suddenly it's just all around.
Social media wasn't always there.
Right.
Then
yeah.
all of a sudden it's the end thing. And then you just pick up stuff. Like right now we're on the cusp of, will TikTok go silent tomorrow?
Yeah.
And people are coming out and saying how much, I will say, individuals and their individual small businesses are reliant upon TikTok, and how much TikTok has been helpful and how much of it contributes to the overall GDP, and what's going to happen to that,
Right. If it goes away.
Yeah, because it's been so integrated.
Yeah.
And with mail, postal mail, snail mail, kind of being more, in many cases, historical. A lot of people maintain communications through social media.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you were a kid, did you play outside?
Growing up in the 70s, we were like the 70s kids, so we were outdoors.
And so, ever since, the rise of technology. Kids I mean, they still play outside, don't get me wrong, but they are more inclined to not play outside because they have other options that are potentially more interesting to them, like virtual reality or PlayStation or going on TikTok or something. Do you think that is changing the way new generations think, or how happy they are, or perceive life?
We adapt to the environment. Our brain sort of adapts to the environment. It's influenced by the environment. Social media is, when we think about the pleasure neurotransmitter, the chemical in the brain that gives us pleasure. It's related to dopamine. We talk about dopamine ticks.
Yeah.
If I get a little hit of dopamine, I'm going to do it again. And social media, it's kind of like processed food. It's going to be hitting
just can't get enough
You're going
of
to be
it.
hitting the dopamine. You're going to be like, I like this.
Hitting the dopamine pen.
I'm going to dive into it.
Yeah.
But then the question is, our brains, we were all built on in-person interactions.
Right.
Does
that qualify as an in-person
It's
interaction?
fantasy.
But does it like light up the same parts of our brain?
I don't necessarily know how if the brain is like overwhelmingly complex. There's going to be a lot of places that get hit no matter what. But the question is, there's going to be a different thing. Like, we can talk about, I have fast food. It hits the caloric load, but really, am I still left wanting? Where's the nutrition?
Right.
Am I still hungry?
And you have kind of like a stomach ache after.
Yeah, you aren't getting the nutrition.
You kind of like regret eating it a little bit.
And part of our senses is that tactile sense.
You like the physical touch of it.
Yeah. So we have with physical contact. I mean, there was studies done years ago about hey, you have two identical twins, or at least twins. And they were in the womb developing together. You separate them. Maybe they were born early and they're in NICU. They're in their separate cribs. If you put them together so they have skin contact, their blood pressure goes down.
Oh, that's cute.
Okay, what do? We like pets.
That's kind of how I feel about me and my pillow.
Yeah, having that contact. It's haptic.
Yeah.
Pets. We like having pets on our lap and touching them. Petting them, that tactile sense.
Do you think they like that?
When we're in romantic relationships, hug. We like the physical contact. Having that contact calms us.
So do you think social media is doing that?
Well, what are they doing with social media? It's let me get sense pads, with those little, let me have sensory pads on me. So that I feel, because I'm just getting a visual thing.
What about being totally ingrained in a virtual reality universe with those sense pads?
Well, then you start going, what's real, what's concrete. I mean, it's going to affect our sense of what's real.
Right.
What is a real friend versus a digital friend? We part of friendship, is having them be proximate to you, where you can be with them in person. Be with them at around the same, same where we're at developmentally, having commonality, common interest, but also being proximate so that we can actually spend time in person.
Do you think that will, virtual reality will get so good that virtual friend, it exists? We're getting a matcha with them and going to the thrift store and going to the arcade and, having conversations, and it gets to the point where we can't tell which one, it feels real. It almost
metaverse.
It almost feels more real than what quote unquote reality.
If we're living in an isolation chamber and that's all that we have, You know, in psychiatry, you know, because of the pandemic, you know, telehealth has taken off, and there's something
Like FaceTime, Zoom.
yeah, like Zoom, you know, or Doxy, just using a virtual platform. Yeah, it increases availability of having service. There's
Right,
a
because
lot
you
of
could be like
there's a lot of
in
underserved
Alaska,
areas.
right?
Yeah, there's a lot of underserved areas. Certainly, like 10, 20 years ago, a lot of the analysts that I knew, you know, like China was, they were having a growing middle class. All of a sudden, they entered an era of, I want to be psychoanalyzed. They didn't have any psychoanalysts. So they were doing psychoanalysis with analysts here in the States
Wow.
via telephone several times a week. You
That's a
know?
big time difference.
And that sort of works a little bit because usually if you're on the analytic couch, you aren't looking at the analyst.
Yeah.
So that sort of works. But at least the provision of therapy sometimes having that connection, you can get services, but there's a limit as to how much I understand patients.
Do you think it is limiting doing it on
There's going to be
video
limits.
call?
There's going to be limits. Like in
Because
person,
there's a lot of stuff you're missing out on,
there's
right?
stuff you miss out on. I mean, there's a pro because
Like you can't smell
access. Well, yeah. I mean, you can't even. I remember people that
them. Like you can't tell if they have dandruff in their hair.
Well, yeah, you can't. Yeah, you can't smell them. Have they not showered in 3 months? You know?
It's like, yeah, like,
you know?
I know what your problem is, man. You have not showered.
But,
you need deodorant.
Yeah, but I also, one of the things I understood, which I wasn't necessarily aware of pre-pandemic, was that sense of, you know, I know like with physical attributes, you know, people will have different interactions with people. And so a lot of times, a lot of people, there may be a bias that people have like towards height. And so people who are taller may go through the world with different experiences than people who may be shorter than they are. And I noticed when I was online, I have no idea how tall people are. I did not realize I was paying attention to that. And there were some people that I thought were short, and other people that I thought were like uber tall. And then I met them in person, and it was like.
And did it just completely change?
Yeah, the people I thought were really tall were actually much shorter, but
change?
they had a particular personality. And other people, I realized their personality looked as though they made them much, you know, it was like this crazy thought I had in my head about like tallness and personality.
So did you just perceive them differently when you saw them in person?
I had to be aware of my own.
You lied to me.
Yeah, well, it's not so much that they lied to me, but I was beginning to be more aware of my own internal assessments and potential biases.
But that's kind of cool too, right? Because that's like you're understanding your analysis of other people more in depth.
More in depth, and I realized that in-person meetings are so much different. Like I remember, you know, at least growing up, talking with people like in a different county. I can't remember where or how far people had to be. You know, long distance phone calls were expensive. You did not spend much time on the phone. Nowadays, you know, I speak with friends on the other side of the planet in real time with you know,
you can get
it's like
unlimited data for $20 a month,
and it's
like you don't have to ever put the phone down if you don't want to.
You don't have the phone. It's just data, and I've with friends, there was a few times where we would just sort of, we would leave the camera. It was like on Skype, where the Skype was more free because we were on our computers, and we would just leave the computers on, and we would just like. I remember one of my friends, he was cleaning, and I was just reading, and we just let it be, and we just sort of hung out in that digital space with each other.
It's not like
it was casual.
It's not like an event, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna call you at Tuesday at 8 p.m. You know, it's like you're looking forward to that.
That's very formal, and it's very stilted.
But now you can just kind of FaceTime anyone.
How can we just
at any
hang
time?
out? During the pandemic, in one of the groups I was in, one of the things they were trying to do, because it was like a physician group, we're all spread out different time zones, and people are like,
Right.
let's have a movie night.
That's cute.
And someone will get a movie, and we'll all like share the screen, and we can all watch this movie together. It's just by everybody being alone, we can watch it together. At least have that commentary, and having that shared activity.
So do you think that is a good thing, or is it like kind of taking away the magic a little bit of having those times
If
set?
that's the only option, if that's the best, and it helps curate that casualness, it helps solidify that sense of connection, fine.
Yeah.
But if there's that option to be in, having that communion of sharing space, of sharing food. I mean, yeah, you can have that digital Zoom and watch each other eat. You can set up on the table and like, let's eat together. But you're eating different food.
Right. You're sitting at different tables.
You're sitting at different tables. It's not the same space. It's something that approximates, but doesn't hit. It's not the same. There's a certain intimacy that's there when how would this conversation go? That if it was like we were separated and this was done over Zoom,
right? I'm starting this podcast, right? And I don't like the idea of doing it over Zoom or meeting people over the phone or virtually, because it's like I want to be able to feel them, feel their presence at the level of that is created when you're in the same place at the same time with them. And sometimes that just doesn't exist so much when over the phone or via technology.
Right.
But I think that's like with the metaverse, I think that's what they're trying to reduce, and trying to enable you to feel the other person's existence better through technology.
I mean, they're trying to get a closer approximation.
Yeah.
But even then, we're operating with avatars. My avatar could be anybody I want.
I know.
And it's not who I am. And the avatar, the avatar is the same. Avatar isn't changing. If I have the avatar for 20 years, I'm going to be aging. My avatar is going to be young. Like,
wouldn't that be nice?
It's like my picture on social media that I use. It's that sense of who are you in this moment? It's different than who you were yesterday.
Right.
I could see that you're tired, or I could see that maybe you got hit and you got a bruise or something. There's I get a better sense that from you, and a better read on you.
Right.
How you're holding yourself, or how you're dressed, or facial expressions. I don't know if an avatar will capture facial expressions.
So, and as a psychiatrist, you have really honed your ability to be observant towards those like subtle changes in people, right? And
I don't necessarily know how good people are at that.
Well, you might be better at it than other people because you're like very observant.
Yeah, I mean, there's that sense of if we pay attention to other people, things tend to click. And making eye contact. What's the flavor of the eye contact? Body position.
Yeah.
If you're only getting like this much on a screen.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know who else is in the room. Here, I know who else is in the room, or who's not in the room.
Right.
When I see people, it's like, can you turn? I have no idea what's going on. I cannot control the environment. My environment may not feel safe or secure because I don't know who's there. I can't control it.
Yeah.
Okay. Privacy. In an age where we get concerned about privacy, there is that sense of when there was a scare of digital hacks. Let's go back to typewriters.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I guess that's not digital, and so we don't have to worry about it getting hacked. Um, and so, can we secure the communication? Can we have privacy? There's going to be things that we may say, I need to talk with you in person. Going back to romantic relationships, there's that sense of getting ghosted, breaking up over a text.
Yeah.
There's that sense of meet in person and talk about it. It's intimate, it's genuine, it's respectful.
Yeah, for sure.
It gets closure.
Um,
When we do funerals, the ultimate closure, we like to see the body so our brain can process it. We're very concrete in our brain, and our brain is going to have difficulties fumbling with that digital technology.
Having relationships online is tough, especially trying to manage difficult moments in the relationship online. And I wonder if part of the problem is that it's harder to have to communicate when you're not with the person in person. And it's harder to establish connection when you're not there in person. So, if you're in a relationship with somebody online and you're having issues, some of your communication gets lost in translation, through the phone, through the data. And it makes it more challenging to heal things. And there's like this biological rhythm that you have when you're with somebody in person that you don't have necessarily over the phone. But then there's also have you ever had this experience where you think of somebody and then they call you up and they send you a text, or there's this reality that we are connected throughout, call it mentally, spiritually, beyond the physical realm. Even if we're not in the same place, we are connected. If you're thinking about somebody and you're sending them love, they will feel that. So there's this dimension that even if we're not in the physical realm together, we are still connected, and attuned to each other.
What about that?
Well, so that's to say that even though technology may separate us in a way, we will always be connected beyond that.
There can be, this gets into some territory that goes outside psychiatry. Although psychiatry has written about this from the 1960s, 1970s onward, where they talk about dream telepathy, and getting into these phenomena that aren't necessarily well known, and it's there's sporadic writings in the realm of psychiatry, particularly in psychoanalysis. They have a study group. But I'm also sort of thinking about, I don't know if there's been research yet on this, but they'll talk about a couple that are together. There's something to be said about that phrase, two hearts beating as one, because their hearts will become in sync.
Both emotionally.
Oh, literally,
and physically.
In sync. Their hearts will beat in sync.
That's so poetic.
It's sort of like people who will walk together. Their steps become in sync. They talk about women living together, their menstrual cycle becoming in sync.
Right.
Okay. So there's something about that being proximate to each other. How do we explain that? How does that happen? And can that happen when there's distance? where the connection is going to be more digital, because the digital adds more concrete. The other one, it's more, there may be a lack of terminology, more intuitive, where there may be more of an intuitive connection.
Right. So let's say that you have like a patient that comes in and they are just completely lost in life, feeling super down, don't know what to do, don't know where to go. And without getting too much into like the analyzing part or like getting to know what the problem is, like what would you say to somebody that needs, some guidance? What is like a good first step?
Well, usually there's the moniker "Know Thyself." In order to come up with a plan, you need to assess. And so sometimes when there is a problem, 95, 97, 98% of the time, it's let me assess the situation, the issue, and what's really going on. And then it may not take that much time to come up with a plan. Or else it's just taking shots in the dark. The more information that you have, then the more you can make an intervention.
Yeah.
More precise. And so there's that sense of, the first question is, tell me about it. Give me more info.
So do you think that part of that is helping them understand themselves?
Well, in order for, let's say, a therapist to understand a seeker, so to speak, they need to understand themselves. It's a project that you two do together to help them understand themselves better.
Yeah. So you're understanding, as a therapist, like you would be understanding them, and then through that, the client would also be understanding themselves on a deeper level.
Yeah, the process, they understand themselves better. There's not per se the guru on the top of the mountain where you spend all your time going up and say, "Guru, give me an answer."
Yeah.
They give you an answer, then you're up there for all of a minute, then you turn around and descend.
Because that's where really transformative healing comes from. It's like with that place where you integrate whatever's going on within yourself and have that recognition, and it's really kind of like imprinted in you. It's not just somebody telling you like you're this and you're that. It's like that like visceral, like embodied understanding of this is like what's going on, and
Yeah, meditation, one of the things is the answer lies within you. Look inside. A lot of people, though, as I said previously,
they have
are
trouble
afraid.
looking inside.
They are afraid.
Yeah.
They do not want to know themselves. They are afraid
What are
of
they
themselves.
afraid of?
That's the question. What do they think is there?
What do you think that you think is there?
That may be different
Per person?
for everybody.
Per individual?
But when people are filled with fear and judgment, am I who I think I am?
And so that place where you're like not sure you are who you think you are, there's this sort of like emptiness there. And that like emptiness and instability is really scary, right?
I mean, there's like a lot of darkness inside. People may not know themselves.
Yeah.
And that fear sort of, for some reason, I'm reminded of one of those lines that was going around on social media. That sense of it ends with, am I the bad one? As they're kind of thinking through the situation.
Yeah.
And maybe sometimes we are. Sometimes we are the problem. But people are afraid that self-judgment. They're afraid of knowing if they know, then word will get out. Then maybe the tribe will ostracize them. And they can tend to be very judgmental and cut off. And they tend to be judgmental of others. They keep things on the superficial.
Yeah.
It's like they don't have that self-intimacy.
And that's no way to live.
I mean, it is a way to live, but one could question the fulfillment of that way of living. You know, it's going to be stagnating. You can only go so far.
I don't think that, yeah, like,
How can you be in a relationship? You don't know what you're bringing into the relationship. You know, where's the intimacy? You have to have intimacy with yourself to have intimacy with another. Intimacy is knowledge of. You know, how do you, if you're going to be in a relationship, who am I that I'm bringing into the relationship?
right.
How do I sell myself to another individual? You know?
Yeah. But you also can't, well, maybe some people do when they're finding a relationship, presenting yourself in a way that might seem appealing to the other person and doing that because you want to increase your chances of getting with them. That seems like kind of like
part of that is what are you
inauthentic.
Yeah, what are you expecting? Let me be your fantasy. And I will put on an act in order to please you, and I will be in a compromised relationship.
And you think people feel better doing that because they don't want to deal with the other side?
People will say better to have a relationship that is not genuine than to risk being alone. And
You really do you think that that's better? You personally?
do I think it's better?
Yeah.
I think it's troubling because part of it is kind of gets into a Jungian notion and getting into shadow work, and part of being aware of how we put up facades, and then if we put up a facade to please other people, and you know, inevitably we stifle ourselves, we kill ourselves.
Right.
We no longer know who we are. We become an actor.
And then there's a certain point where you realize, like, I'm so tired of this facade because
acting.
I want to be who I am. I don't want to carry this out anymore.
Yeah, and then the next issue, but is it safe to be who I am?
Right.
And you have to be willing to take a risk.
But then there's also a point where, you know, some people may not be able to handle keeping up that facade anymore, whether they want to or not, right? And then they just kind of like give in to whatever their truth is. It
takes a lot of energy to weave and maintain deception.
And it's exhausting. And
It's
exhausting. It wears you down.
Yeah, because you have to juggle what's the story that I told this person.
Yeah.
Now, how am I supposed to be? What's the act? It's nice to just be casual, be ourselves.
So how do you be yourself in today's world?
Hi.
Hi.
That's the rub. You just be.
You just be. You just... Yeah. That's harder than it sounds.
Because we make it hard.
Yeah, I know.
You know, but
life could be so easy, right?
Yeah, one of the difficulties, I suppose, you know, that right now we're in a transition, potential transition socially. And if we live in a society that finds diversity precious, it will permit that diversity to have a life. If they see diversity as dangerous to themselves, you know, where they cannot tolerate any difference, then we will all be running around afraid of being seen as different. And we're all going to be trying to wear a mask of conformity, at least out in public. and we will be all paranoid and anxious and drained, keeping up these facades, hoping that at least at home we could, we can be ourselves.
We can chill out.
Yeah, but a lot of times people, they have facades out in the real world, facades at home, and they don't find an area of safety. AI and social media, Big Brother watching, going back to 1984. There's that sense of on our computers, TVs, smart technology, everything is being monitored. Do we have to be disconnected, go off grid in order to feel safe to be ourselves?
So that's the level. That's how that level of disconnectedness has risen with the rise of technology, the internet, this world, this separate world that is apart from real life, but at the same time so ingrained in real life. It's like a second reality. And so this level of maintaining ourselves has just advanced, and the need to maintain ourselves has just gotten stronger because we have a bigger platform that we need to maintain ourselves on.
Yeah. A lot of times when we think about, like, say, being a big fish in a small town, if we grew up in a small town, not as much competition. With things having gone global and digital, our competition went from our small town to the world.
Right.
And people on that digital platform, what goes out there lasts forever. It's our digital legacy. People want to have that appearance of I'm going to put out a facade that will make other people envy me. And it's going to be that avatar. What's my online image?
Right.
And I'm going to try to protect that
And
image
it's so
and
important
reputation.
to us.
But a lot of it's like a facade. It's not real.
It's not real, yet
it's not
it
genuine.
weighs on us
And
so incredibly heavily.
yeah, and people will think that they know us. They have that intimacy, but they don't know us.
Right.
They aren't inside our heads.
Right. And it's like, right, because that's the thing, like, celebrities, you know what I mean? We don't know celebrities. We don't know who they really are because, like, we've never met them. Do you know what I mean? But
we don't know what goes inside their heads.
But, like, their facade is like their career. You know what I mean? And that's not to say, like, there's anything wrong with them as a person, but they have
But it's not them. It's not who they are as people.
Right. And then we say, like, oh, they did this and they're like this. And, like, no, you don't actually know them,
Yeah.
It's just what you see, what is presented to you.
Yeah. And, and so a lot of times when people see celebrities who are actors, they usually name them by their character that they played, and because they don't know who they are in real life.
Yeah. And they're people, too. Just
And
like
they're
everybody
people.
else.
They aren't, they are not their character.
Yeah. Their character has been designed to...
Yeah, and if they're a really good actor, they can play people that are totally different than who they are as as a person.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And like when we think about history, a lot of times we have these historical accounts, and I'm not one to necessarily read biographies, but a lot of times biographies are sort of like, what's an account of externals but what went on in a person's head? What did they wrestle with? What did they worry about? What were what terrified them? What scared them? We don't know what they wrestled with. When we think about therapy, and at least with more insight-oriented dynamic types of therapy, we want to know what goes on inside the head. You have to be able to be brave enough to think out loud, or else we aren't going to get anywhere in therapy. Yeah. We don't know what's motivating you. We just see actions, but actions have different motivations depending upon the person.
So this is a very important theme as we progress in our evolutionary stage of humanity, It's being yourself, not being afraid to be present with your internal sensations, not feeling the need to maintain this deceptive facade, especially with the rise of technology, especially with the rise of AI or social media, and bravery.
If we feel safe, if we feel secure, if we have that social safety net that lets us know we're okay
Yeah.
in their eyes, then we can take risks. We can be creative. Then we as an individual, we as a tribe, we as a society can evolve and maintain health. We can grow and develop.
But there also needs to be this level of like being a based person, based God, like not caring too much about what other people think, regardless of the tribe, regardless of your community, having that sensation inside of yourself saying, I can be myself regardless of what they think about me.
Nuance. Oh, yeah, you're hitting a little bit of the nuance. I care about you, what you think. Okay, I want feedback. I need feedback. In all my relationships, I'm the common denominator. If everybody's saying the same thing, maybe I am the problem. I care about what other people think. If I care about you, I care about what you think. Is it going to be pivotal? You know, is my sense of self, am I giving you the power to define me? You know, I'm maintaining the power over my own self-definition. But I also need input so that I can challenge my self-notions, my self-definitions.
Right.
And if appropriate, I can weather what anybody says, whether they say something negatively about me or if they're saying positive, you know, they're saying flattering comments to manipulate me.
Right.
I can take it with a grain of salt either way.
Yeah.
I can have a stable sense of self that's not going to bounce around with from the externals. I care about what you think. It lets me know where you're coming from. It gives me feedback. I can take it in and think about it. You know, I can adopt it, internalize it.
But it doesn't rule me.
It doesn't
rule my
me.
world.
Yeah, yeah. But it's going to have an impact.
Yeah.
You know, as an artist, I might say I'm going to make what I want to make. Okay. It's not the best commission is here's money, do what you want.
Yeah.
But if I'm making money as an artist, I'm also wanting to know, but what's going to sell? And I have to be able to sell what I want to make. If I'm insecure, you know, then I'm relegated to what other people want. That's going to constrict my creativity. You know, I'm just going to produce what I think people want.
Yeah.
For safe sales. Okay.
Yeah.
But I need to figure out how to be creative and sell my art. And likewise, as an individual, you know, we are all like working pieces of art. You know, how you know, what's my artist statement? You know, who am I?
Yeah.
What am I about? And how can I sell my genuine self out there? I only need, you know, in romantic relationships, I only need one person who's interested. It's like a painting.
Yeah.
I only need one person who likes it. The rest of the people, it doesn't matter. They may like it, okay?
But they don't get it.
But they don't get it. But you only need one buyer,
Yeah.
okay? So there's that sense of as long as I find that one buyer, that one person who wants to be with me, you know, things are okay.
Yeah. So.
And then if that person is pivotal to me, their opinion,
It's high, right?
it's going to be high. Other
Right.
people, it's not going to matter as much. But if I value them, I'm going to value their opinion.
Well, there's also the importance of, you know, maintaining yourself when you have this person in your life that you have a very high opinion of, you know.
Yeah, but there's also the sense of saying to the person, you may be the world to me.
Yeah.
And I really have loved this journey of growth that I've had with you.
Yeah.
But if it means I'm going to die from this point forward to continue that, I need to exit. Because if I stay with you, I'm going to be dead.
Yeah.
And I need to remain alive, so it's in my best interest to
And
buy out.
a good partner wouldn't want you to die from that.
They want you to be who you are. If they are healthy and they want their partner to grow, even that for me, that sense of love is I love you. I want you to grow. I want you to be safe and secure. I want you to grow. I want to be able to do that with you. But I love you so much, I will let you go if it means that I'm stifling you. I don't want to hold you back.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. So let us conclude this with one question. What piece of advice would you give to your 25-year-old self?
Don't be afraid of yourself. Well, better yet, it's okay to be afraid of yourself, but don't let it inhibit knowing yourself.
That is a good one. That is something that I deal with. That is something that a lot of young people deal with. And it comes in the way of really, truly living a fulfilling life and being yourself a lot of times. And being okay with being yourself around other people that you care about or whose impression you care about. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Jan, for the opportunity.
Thank you for coming on. And I look forward to the next time we can talk.